Hazardous wastes are perhaps the best known and notorious wastes we generate. Early experiences with these wastes were the toxic drums disposed of in the neighborhoods of Love Canal, New York, and Times Beach, Missouri. Communities exposed to the then non-regulated disposal and exposure of hazardous waste, such as those depicted in the famous case and filmed in Erin Brockovich, were until relatively recently totally unaware of the threat in their own backyards. Environmental justice laws under the Civil Rights Act became prominent as industries producing hazardous waste were disproportionately siting on inexpensive land associated with low-income communities. In 1976, the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, or RCRA, was written to classify and issue regulations for the disposal of hazardous waste. Another special waste, radioactive waste, is a particular form of hazardous waste and is regulated separately. One of the most vexing waste disposal issues surrounds nuclear waste, which are radioactive and extremely hazardous. While hazardous has many different names, depending upon the laws covering their disposal, they all have in common flammability, corrosivity, reactivity, or toxicity. They include acids, toxic chemicals, explosives, and other potentially harmful waste. Two measures are routinely used in risk assessment. LD50s, or the lethal dose that kills 50% of the test organisms, and LC50s, the lethal concentration of the material that through respiration will kill 50% of organisms in a 4-hour period. Aquifers are especially vulnerable to contamination by these compounds through leakage of inadequately disposed barrels, especially in areas where rainfall that leaches contaminants into drinking water aquifers. Hazardous wastes are processed to control for harmful exposures by chemical stabilization, fixation, volume reduction by incineration, waste segregation, detoxification, degradation, and encapsulation. Regulations for the transportation of hazardous waste attempt to limit the potential exposure from accidents and release of these toxins. Like solid waste, hazardous waste disposal sites are strictly engineered to prevent escape of the toxins. However, the regulations for hazardous waste and nuclear waste in particular are more complex and expensive. The well-known Superfund program, managed by EPA, was created to clean up existing hazardous waste disposal areas that are not adequately contained. New disposals are regulated under RCRA. The special case of radioactive waste deserves individual attention. Radioactive compounds are produced by the hospital industry in the form of X-rays using radium, polonium, and later beryllium. Subatomic particles were later identified, and today the management of radioactive waste requires an understanding of the sources and effects of alpha, beta, gamma, and neutron emissions. Measuring ionizing radiation uses particle counters, ionization chambers, photographic films, and thermoluminescent detectors. Health effects from radiation stem from their ability to break the chemical bonds in tissue. Effects are classified as somatic radiation sickness, which is the circulatory breakdown, nausea, hair loss, and possible death, loss of organ function and carcinogenesis, and genetic, which is the damage to the DNA of the cell nucleus. Sources of radioactive waste include nuclear fuel cycle, nuclear weapons manufacture, radiopharmaceuticals, biomedical research, and industrial uses. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission classifies radioactive waste as high-level nuclear fuels, uranium mining and milling tailings, transuranic waste mostly from plutonium purification, and weapons fabrication, byproduct material, and low level. Like many industrial waste scenarios, radioactive waste disposal and management, the compounds last for thousands of years, and the costs continue to rise to levels never envisioned in pre-environmental enforcement years. The cleanup and storage of radioactive waste will generate multi-generational jobs. Nuclear weapons use is currently avoided through international laws, but nuclear fuel generation continues to compete with other sources of energy, and the disposal of the byproducts of this efficient energy source limit its use today. Solutions to the safe disposal of nuclear waste are one of the big challenges in our future.